Hey there, my name is Jen, and I am a survivor of vicious and sadistic domestic violence. I want to talk to you today about a concept that once I learned it, it really helped me heal from the domestic abuse and violence that I experienced, and it is reactive abuse. Here's what it looks like. My abuser would come at me with some insane, outlandish, and insulting claim. He would just start screaming about anything. It could be clothes on the floor that weren't even mine. It could be the way something happened during the morning, the way I put a teacup into the dishwasher. It didn't matter what it was. And he would spin himself into crazy with his screaming. By the time that he was really ready to turn up the heat, everything that had gone wrong was my fault, sometimes even in his entire life. Everything was wrong. And again, everything was all my fault. I would try to hold it together, especially as I started to figure out what was going on in the relationship. I didn't still know that this was a tactic, but I knew that he was spinning out of control. And I obviously knew that things that happened to him in childhood were not my fault. And that's usually what he was screaming at me about. But eventually, you can only take so much. And eventually, my emotions would get the best of me. I would try to defend my position. I would try to say things to him like, that's not true, or that didn't happen. To which he responded, do you have video evidence that it didn't happen? Which is almost impossible. That's a form of gaslighting. Do you have proof it didn't happen? And then he'd start to blame me as I would start to cry. He'd call me too sensitive. He'd let me know I was too emotional. And he'd let me know that the whole relationship was a mistake. We never should have been together. And yeah, I would get really upset. And then he would do the most amazing thing. It was like he had this ability, once I started to spin, to do a full dead stop. He would sit there completely calm and composed with a stupid, sinister grin on his face and just stare at me and make little tiny comments reiterating his point that I was out of control, that clearly I had a problem, and that he had nothing to do with it. By the time that this us cycle was over, I had no idea what the fight was about to begin with. I had no idea how anything that he was screaming about had anything to do with anything else, because it was always chaos and confusion. And I would be really upset. I'd go to work upset. I'd teach upset. I deal with my kids with this emotional weight on me. And then I left, and it didn't happen anymore. And I got myself some of the best therapy that you can get. And I learned about reactive abuse. I learned that this is a tactic that abusers use to put you in spin and make you look ridiculous. You see, they can use this to now go tell everybody, well, I tried to have a conversation with her about something that I didn't like that was going on, and she blew up at me. She got emotional. She started screaming. She's so defensive. Now, I knew that that hadn't happened. But once I started hearing that he was doing this, I was further insulted. And again, it wasn't until I was out that I realized what this was. Now, if you find yourself living in this situation where your partner comes at you screaming with unbelievable chaos and confusion, and then turns that little tiny chaos and confusion into an hour-long fight, a day-long fight. Heck, some of these went on for weekends at a time. It was utterly insane what he was doing. If you are regularly in tears like I was because of what was being said to you, you're a victim of domestic violence. You're with an abuser. And the first thing that I would recommend that you do is do some safety planning at your local domestic violence center. No one's going to make you leave. No one's even going to make you think of leaving. But make sure that you get some emotional support for yourself during this time. If you have survived domestic violence and you're already away from your abuser, again, I would recommend checking in with the experts. Go to your domestic violence center and get the help that you need. You may be comfortable with a support group. You may want private therapy. You may want an educational program. I did all of them over a 2-year period, and it literally saved me. So do that. And I also want to say to those of you who support a victim or a survivor, if she's living in abuse, she's going to need you to love her with everything that you have. She's going to need you to listen to the stories. You can be honest. You can point her in the direction of services to your local domestic violence center. You can also just be the friend there that holds her hand. Stop telling her it's time to leave. Don't tell her that you're sick of hearing the stories. She is living in a chaotic show and she doesn't know what to do. She may not be able to get out safely right now, and she may be very concerned about her future. And if you're supporting a survivor, someone who's already been out, keep her world peaceful. Don't pick fights when you're mad. Don't blame her for things just because you think that it's her fault. My boyfriend and I can talk logically about what's going on in our lives. We can logically discuss things even when we don't agree, and it can be a peaceful experience and actually make us stronger. But it takes a commitment from him every day to do that because he knows what I've been through and he supports me. Again, if you are a victim or survivor of domestic violence, heck, even if you are the support team, call your local domestic violence center, call that shelter and get help. You're worth it and your kids are worth it. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.